So, good day everyone, good day sir. So, I am Enrique Candilla and I'm going to discuss the continuation of what has Miss Chavez been reported earlier. So, since she already discussed the introduction and characteristics of Art Nouveau. So, what I'm going to discuss now is the types of designs. So, I have here a typical decorative elements that are mostly used or that are mostly present in Art Nouveau movement. So, we have here a leaf, terminal motifs, intertwined organic forms, curvaceous in shape. So that are the elements that are mostly present in Nouveau movements. So I have here an example image or an example of designs of Art Nouveau. So art made in this style typically depicted from lavish birds, flowers, insects, and other zoomorph. But not just that, there are also some designs that are using hair and the curvaceous body of a beautiful woman. Next is the application. So, Art Nouveau designs were most common in glassware, jewelry, and ceramics. So, makita nato ang kanang Art Nouveau na kanang design sa kanang mostly sa kanang glassware, baso, or like kanang plates sa mga inana sa mga kanang another is the jewelry. So mostly sa jewelry ang ilang ginagamit na kanang design is from Art Nouveau designs. Next is the ceramics. When say ceramics, it is a decorative jar. So we've mostly seen it in the museums or in our homes, decorative jars. So this style also was applied into the textiles or household silvers or domestic utensils. So we also find some Art Nouveau designs in our fork or in our spoons. And another is cigarette cases. So mga dato na to na mga cigarette cases, expensive cigarettes. So ang ilang cigarette cases are, there are some cigarette cases that are designs are made from Art Nouveau. The next is furniture, so mostly drawings, poster art, painting, and book illustration. So the next is the famous Art Nouveau artist. So the first one is Jules Cheret. So Jules Cheret is very famous in her time. He is called as he is called as a king of poster. So he is a French lithographer which who invented the three-stone chromolithography. So he only uses three colors in his artworks, which is the color red, yellow, and blue. And then another is he is also a lithographer, designer, and a designer who is Alphonse Mucha, 1960 to 1936. So he is the one who celebrated posters epitomize the Art Nouveau idiom. Another is Emile Gallier of France and Louis Comfort Tiffany of the United States. They are very famous for their colorful Art Nouveau glassware. Another is Aubrey Birdsley and Walter Crane for their wonderful Art Nouveau drawings. So we have also here another famous artist in Art Nouveau movement. So we also have René Lalique. He is a French jewelry designer. Another is Stanislaus Piansky, who is a designer, polished theatrical designer, and stained glass artist. Another is Charles Rennie Mackintosh. He is a Scottish architect and designer, and he is also a leader of the Glasgow School. So next is the legacy and influence of Art Nouveau. So Art Nouveau promoted a more widespread adoption of beautiful design. So it did not diminish the value of the machine or mass production, but instead took advantage of many technological innovations from the late 19th century. So even so, by the World War I, it is to succumb to the more streamlined design process that were beginning to become available. So possibly it it was influenced on the 20th century advocates of integrated design such as the German Bauhaus design school and the Dutch design movement the stage. And another is the graphic arts such as illustration and poster design. So nowadays, Art Nouveau is viewed as an important bridge between neoclassicism and modernism, and a number of its monuments are on the UNESCO World Heritage List, notably the historic center of Riga, Latvia, with over 750 buildings in the Art Nouveau style. So next is the Fauvism. So Fauvism, it is a style of painting that flourished in France around the turn of the 20th century. So Fauve artists use pure, brilliant color, aggressive applied straight from the paint tubes to create a sense of an explosion of the canvas. So when you say Fauve Gani, another term of Fauve is a wild beast. So um, Fauve artist uses only a radical unnatural colors that separated color from its usual representational and realistic role, giving new emotional meaning to the colors. Also, they create a strong unified work that appears flat on the canvas. So we have here an example of artworks, which is The Woman in the Hat. It is by Henri Matisse. So it depicts his wife named Amélie, and it was painted on 1905 and exhibited at the Salon d'Automne during the fall of the same year, along with the works by the André Derain and Maurice de Flaming. So the works of André Derain, which is the dance, um, it it is an ambitious and remarkably eclectic painting that combines references to multiple European and non-European sources, as well as the Gardener by Maurice de Flaming. So they goes the same school and they shared little interest. They shared their interest about paintings. Next is the characteristics of Fauvism. So the characteristics of Fauvism, it includes a radical use of unnatural colors that has separated color from its usual representation and realistic role. So I've already said it earlier. Giving you emotional meaning to the colors, creating a strong unified work that appears flat on the canvas. So showing individual expressions and emotions on the painter instead of creating paintings based on the theories of what painting should look like, with objects represented as they appear in nature, and it's a, bold brush strokes using paint straight from the tube instead of preparing and mixing it. So another is, we're going to move to expressionism. So when we say expressionism, it is an artistic style in which the artist seeks to depict not objective reality, but rather the subjective emotions and responses that objects and events arouse within a person. So the artist accomplishes this aim through distortion, exaggeration, primitivism, and fantasy, and through the vivid, jarring, and violent or dynamic application of formal elements. When we say application, it refers to an art in which the image of reality is distorted in order to make it expressive of the artist's inner feelings or ideas. So usually the artists express their thoughts, their feelings, their ideas, their emotions through painting or drawings. And then this is the example of Expressionism. It is by Ernst Ludwig Kirchner. The Dresden Street. It emphasizes the dynamism of urban life in Germany in the early 20th century, depicting the swirling crowds and electric light on the modern city. So we have here also the famous expressionist artist. So we have here Max Beckmann. He is a German painter who was against the expressionist movement. However, many of his paintings are described as expressionist. So he is classified as an expressionist artist, but he rejected both terms at the movement. Another is James Ensor, a Dutch painter who had great influence on the expressionist movement in Germany. Another is Oskar Kokoschka, an Australian artist whose artwork was displayed in the German magazine The Storm when Expressionism became a true art movement. So he is one of the longest lived expressionist painters, and he moved daringly from a more decorative style into a bold, racy expressionism. So next is August Macht, a leading member of the expressionist group, the Blue Rider in Germany. He also painted some abstract art. So he was one of the leading members of Expressionists, which is the group Blue Rider. Next is Franz Mayer, a founding member of the Blue Rider group, and he is one of the leaders in Expressionist movement. So he is a German painter and a printmaker. So one of his key figures of German Expressionism. He was a founding member of a Blue Rider, also a journal whose name later became synonymous with the circle of artists collaborating in it. Next is Edward. Next is Edvard Munch. Munch, a symbolist and expressionist. Munch is best known for his famous painting The Scream. So he is a Norwegian painter. His best known work, The Scream, has become one of the iconic images of world art. So his childhood was overshadowed by illness, bereavement, and the dread of inheriting a mental condition that ran in his family. Next is Egon Schiele, an early adopter of Expressionism. So he died at the young age of 21. So he is an Australian painter and celebrated member of Expressionism, an artist movement flourished at the beginning of the 20th century. So in art manuals, he is one of the 10 depicted as the innovators of figure painting who restrained from using much color. So the decline of the movement. So the decline of Expressionism was hastened by the vagueness of its longing for a better world, by its use of highly poetic language, and in general, at intensely personal and accessible nature of its mode of presentation. So the partial re-establishment of stability in Germany after 1924 and the growth of more overtly political styles of social realism hastened the movement's decline in the late 1920s. So that's the reason why Expressionism was declined. Next is the advent of Expressionism in Germany. So Expressionism was a dominant style in Germany in the years of immediately following World War I, where it suited the post-war atmosphere at cynicism, alienation, and disillusionment. So although it included various artists and styles, Expressionism first emerged in 1905 in a group of 4 German architect students who decided to become partners. They are er- Ernst, Ernst Ludwig and 4 others who formed the group The Bridge in the city of Dresden. And then a few years later, in 1911, a like-minded group of young artists formed, which is called the Blue Bridge. So the next is we have here an example of Expressionism. It is the Scream by Edvard Munch. So and they depicted scenes of city dwellers, prostitutes, and dancers on the city street and nightclubs, presenting the decadent underbelly of German society. So the scream evidence to conflict between spirituality and modernity as a central theme of his work. Then characteristics of expressionism. So expressionist art tried to convey emotion and meaning rather than reality. So each artist had his own unique way of expressing his emotions in his art in order to express emotion. So the subjects are often distorted or exaggerated. So mostly our artists are relying on their feelings or their thoughts or their ideas in making their expressionism movement. So next is the cubism to installation art. So Cubism was introduced to the public with Braque's one-man exhibition at Daniel's Canwell Gallery on the Rue Vignon in November 1908. It was this exhibit that led French art critic Louis Vauxailles to describe them as bizarre cubics, thus giving the movement its name. When we say Cubism, it is a style of art that stresses abstract culture at the expense of other pictorial elements, especially by displaying several aspects of the same object simultaneously and by fragmenting the form of depicted objects. So, in simplest way, Cubism is an artistic movement created by Pablo Picasso and George Braque, which employs geometric shapes and depictions of human and other forms. So this is the example of Cubism. It is Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. It is by Pablo Picasso. So it represents the young women of Avignon. It refers to the Avignon street in Barcelona, on how the prostitutes on how the home of it is the home of prostitutes that the artists are relying into. Next is the Cubist vision. So the Cubists saw the limitation of if perspective as an obstacle to progress. So they wanted to introduce the idea of relativity, how the artist perceived and selected elements from the subject. So fusing both their observations and memories into one concentrated image. Of Cubist painting, paradoxically abstract in form, was an attempt at a more realistic way of seeing. So, they wanted to introduce the idea of relatively how the artist perceived and selected elements from the object. So, fusing both their observations and memories into the one concentrated image. So, to do this, the Cubist artists examined the way that they see. Next is the two distinct phases of Cubism. We have here analytical Cubism and the synthetic Cubism. So when we say analytical Cubism, it is considered to have run until around 1912. It looks more serious. So objects are split into lots of flat shapes representing the views of them from different angles, and muted colors and darkened tones or shades are used. So it while the synthetic cubism, it involves simpler shapes and brighter colors, or it looks more light-hearted and fun. Next is cubism and beyond. So cubism was born in France but immigrated across Europe and integrated with the artistic consciousness of several countries. So it emerged as futurism in Italy, Vorticism in England, Suprematism and Constructivism in Russia, and Expressionism in Germany. So it comprises the Cubist influence works on paper, sculpture, and paintings from a wide range of European, Israeli, Australian, and British artists. So next is Futurism. So it is a movement in art, music, and literature began in Italy about 1909 and marked especially by an effort to give uh, formal expression to the dynamic energy and movement of mechanical um, processes. So, an early 20th century artistic movement centered in Italy emphasizes the dynamism, speed, energy, and power of the machine, and the vitality, change, and restlessness of the modern life. So, we have here an example of futurism. So, we have here a dynamism of a dog on a leash by Giacomo Bella, and unique forms of continuity by Umberto Boccioni. So the next is abstract or non-objective arts. So non-objective art is a type of abstract or non-representational art. It tends to be geometric and does not represent specific objects, so people or other subjects found in natural world. So non-object non-objective art is abstraction in its purest form. So one of the best-known non-objective artists is Vasily Kandinsky. He is the earliest pioneers of non-objective art. So when we say abstract or non-objective art, it defines a type of abstract art that is usually but not always geometric and aims to convey a sense of simplicity and purity. Next is the style. So non-objective painting typically uses geometric motifs on a shallow picture plane. So as a general rule, no use is made of linear perspective to create the illusion of pictorial depth. Neither is impasto employed to create textural effects. So the style. So we also have the other styles of art are related or similar to non-objective art. Among these are the Bauhaus, Constructivism, Cubism, Futurism, and Op art. So the next is the Dadaism. It was an artistic and literary movement that began in Zurich, Switzerland. It arose as a reaction to World War I and the nationalism that many thought had led to the war. So Dada's aesthetic, marked by its mockery and materialistic and nationalistic attitudes, proved a powerful influence on artists in many cities, including Berlin, Hanover, Paris, New York, and Cologne, all of which generated their own groups. So when we say Dadaism, it is an art form or an art movement that is revolving around the incidents that occurred during its origin. So it is also a movement because it is an art from spearheaded and adopted by a group of artists with a similar philosophy and style at a particular period. So the next reporter will become Colipino, and she will be discuss the other topic about Dadaism. So that's all. Thank you.